Now we're here. All right. Welcome back to the Speak Up Club from A-létheia in a live session here for our crowd, our people, our audience, the brave ones that constantly keep listening to, keep watching us every weekend, every Friday for the last months, and of which of whom we're so grateful. Of course, we always have you in our good vibes, our good vibes list. Sorry, guys. As you know, at the beginning, I need to configure it that everything is working properly. I think everything is working properly. So let's begin. This is a little bit crooked, though. Oh, yeah, of course, the cable. Sorry, people. Give me a second. Yeah, that's the case. I hope there is no earthquake today. So it's a little bit impatient as well. All right, guys, let's begin. So, people, tonight, as you can see, the topic is called Grinding Life. What is that? And the description actually spoke a little bit about that, working out, exercising, and other different things apart from exercising, but related to that will allow us to have better quality of life. Specifically, mostly it is related to how you age, having the best way of aging. Now, it is important that we contextualize this conversation, of course, right? And to say, where we're going with this. So, today we can say that most people are, I would not really say educated, but they have incredible and seemingly absolute access to information, of which that you can say compared to people from generations past will make people would make you think that people are highly more educated than previous generations. Okay, the reason, for example, most people will argue that in the past people used to read more. True, however, people used to read more about some stuff in particular. Today we can read more about any stuff in general. We don't have to go in deep too much on it, but we have the capacity of compiling so much information that a single kid can easily have information of what a doctor um, that spends years studying to become a doctor have access to. And a kid cannot have access to the same thing because most information is already on the online out there if you know how to look for it. So of course you will say, well, that will mean that definitely people are smarter today than what they were before. Well, one thing is having lots of information, and the other thing is actually knowing about stuff. Knowing that when we are with people treating with life in general, we know that um, there are many different things that are happening in the life of a person, and knowing about stuff does not really give us the time to really go in deep into many of these different things that we think that we know. So let's say, for example, at school time, which is the best time ever for getting to know about stuff, you can get interested in any different type of thing from a week to a week, from a month to a month, from a year to year. You can change your trends constantly because that's the time for you to do so. So of course, you can say that some days, sorry, you can have a trend that you getting familiar with. Let's say, I don't know, skating, and you start investigating everything that you want to know about skating, and you can do so. You can get access to information about like the history of the most famous athletes skating, techniques, brands of accessories or gadgets, etc., etc. And the same thing can be done with, I don't know if you're interested in, let's say, finding out about quantic mechanics. Yeah, a kid today can easily get access a lot of information about that and start reading and geeking about the topic. And yeah, when having or entangling with the conversation with an adult can actually even surprise the adult or outstruck them by commenting on two or three things that possibly the adult has never even read or heard about. That is completely possible. But you cannot pretend to, with that information, have that kid taking a decision upon the same field, okay? From perspective of a professional, because that kid probably have read a lot, but that doesn't really mean that has had the experience that it goes with studying and working on the matter. Now you probably said, why am I speaking about that? Well, because we're speaking about life, and as I said, life has quite a lot of different layers. When it comes to living your life, you know, you sorry, you know that you're more than just simply your job or your let's say your family name or your let's say hobbies, or even your ideologies, your religion, etc. You're more than just that. You're all of that plus more. You are the time that you're spending here in this planet, and as you are alive and you are going to be interacting with a bunch of other people such as yourself, and that process of sharing with other people will obviously make you know that other people have access to the same experiences that you're having. Those experiences that you're sharing with them will be nice or will be awful, depending on, most of it is depends on how you guys decide to share that experience. Not to say that, I mean, things that happen without our power or our control, that will make you have a great life or a miserable life. That's totally true. Accidents happen all the time. I'm not really referring to that. I'm referring to the attitude that people have take whenever they live and they see whatever they do. You know, there's some people that have been born without legs or arms. We get to know about them because some video or some report about how they managed to accomplish a bunch of different things despite their problems, the physical problems, or even those that managed to accomplish in academics despite, let's say, their academic challenges, etc., etc. We know all of that, but we all know that that's not exactly the what happens with the majority of people, not the people that you know in the streets, the people that you're familiar with. Not many people actually get to be famous in reality. Some people know famous people, that's true. But is everyone famous around that person that knows someone that's famous? Or is, of course, if you are famous yourself, you will possibly surround yourself with famous people. But can you say that you are the majority of people that you know in reality? No, of course. That's a little stupid of me to say because you can, have those type of people that have always all their lives lived in that bubble, the bubble of entertainment, for example, the kid stars. But we all know that that's also that stereotype about the kid stars that they don't have an easy life, living in a bubble and not experimenting the same things that regular people need to experiment in order to have a normal life. See things how as things are supposed to be, and not under the coverage of those special conditions. Okay, being famous, being super rich, etc., etc. So, as we all know, that people have access to all this information. We all know that everybody is supposed to know what are those things that we are supposed to consider or have in our lives to say that we um, we are trying to pursue a good life, you know, to having to live the best of our lives, to having to have the best attitude or the best disposition, or simply just live well, right? So everybody knows that, the typical thing: eat well. What means eating well? Okay, you need to eat well if you want to age well, and to eat well means to have a balanced diet, or to sleep well, meaning that sleeping no less than 8 hours a day or a night. Let's say, to have peace of mind. Of course, when you're having a stable job or having a stable living conditions. So, a little bit of a peace of mind. Also, exercising. Everybody knows that you need to exercise a little, as well as drinking at least no less than 2.5 liters of water a day, as well as to not watching so much screens, for example, as well as, I don't know, what's another thing that everybody's supposed to know. Oh, of course, I keep a good warm connection with your loved ones. Okay, that's more or less like the secret. That is no secret. Everybody knows all these points that you're supposed to have in order to have a good life, right? Now, of course, you say, well, yeah, yeah, I know that, I know that, I know that, I know that. And how come everyone that will be listening to this, not now because I don't have anyone live at this moment, but later, everyone that think about the same image that I'm trying to draw for you, about how um, you were supposed to know about this, but then you don't know many people that actually follow this to the letter, and you don't do it yourself. Like, starting, for example, having a balanced diet. That's not the common. You probably know a few people that actually really pay attention to what they eat, but they're not a lot of different people. In fact, some of them that might actually act weird because of how they eat. I remember there was a time that I experimented with becoming a vegetarian, and I used to be speaking openly about that because for me it was a worrisome situation. Changing from being omnivorian to becoming a vegetarian was a big deal since I eat a lot. And for some people, I actually believe right now, like looking in hindsight, that I could have been nosy and noisy about stuff regarding my diet, because why do people care what I eat? And speaking a lot about that will be like, some people will consider it as boastful on my side. I don't necessarily, I cannot really say that that was my intention back then, because that wasn't. But I cannot really change that possible impression I would have given to people. But you see, lots of people do that. Lots of people speak to others from a perspective of what they eat, in a, let's say, in a position of possibly bragging about it whenever they have positions like this, like, having a particular diet. People that don't have particular diets, people that eat whatever, don't really need to do these type of things. And of course, their attitude towards, speaking to others about food is mostly just from the perspective of enjoyment. As, oh, I ate this the other day, it was delicious. I went to this restaurant and it was great, etc., etc. So of course, that's what happens. But then, of course, you got people that begin to age like everybody does. And we start considering food more often and more often because our doctors tell us, like, hey, look at your blood results. I don't like this. I don't like this. What's happened with your glucose level? What happens with your cholesterol, and so on and so forth, with different other different things that, if you're alive, no matter your age, you will have to pay attention to eventually. Okay, so once you start thinking about this, you start thinking that, okay, well, there is that thing about food that I need to consider. I need to be careful with. Then there is that thing about my, physical appearance. Some people say that you work out because of your physical appearance, whereas in reality, we know that the workout, we don't do it for that. I mean, if we do it seriously, we don't do it for that. We do it for the passion we get from it. You see that I say passion that we get from it. I did not say because we commit to it because we want to be healthy. It's not like that in reality. In order for you to be, let's say, the healthiest, it's quite difficult from the perspective of, using health as your objective. And I guess that's part of the reason why you don't see people engaging into that, not into having a good diet and not into working out. The same situation happens with, the other ones that I mentioned as having a peace of mind. How important it is for people to really understanding what it is to relax. You know, in speaking about working out, you got a segment that is really important of a good training. That is the segment of stretching, and not many good athletes pay attention to stretching. And I'm telling you because myself included, I don't do stretching that often unless when I went to practice a little bit of BJJ because you need to stretch if you do some BJJ. And I love that sport and I wanted to, do well. And for that reason, I learned that I had to stretch if I needed to be put in certain positions. So that's basically the only moments that I do any stretching. I know I should do more stretching, and I don't do that often. Should do. So, like myself, I guess there's quite a lot of different people that dedicate themselves to sport and possibly they don't do enough stretching. And they know from time to time that they get these recurring injuries. And that happens to be true. Not every person that you know that practices a sport becomes a professional or becomes even known as a professional. A lot of people become professionals, but they don't make it in reality. They don't. If not, just simply just check on the Olympic Games and the numbers of the last people in anything. The numbers of the last people, and possibly in some competitions, the most popular ones, the numbers could be awful, like number 300, or number even worse than that, you know, which is a reality that people need to consider. You can be the last in the sport that you like the best. You can be the worst in what you love to do the best. By the way, this is something that I didn't say. This is something taken from the supposed Kurt Cobain's last letter, suicide letter that he left to his wife and other people. Apparently, that's what it said. Well, at least that's what the media was at that time speaking a lot about, exploiting a lot about Kurt Cobain. So, peace of mind, someone like Kurt Cobain, you know that he didn't have peace of mind. I mean, the situations that he was living that for many people were possibly enviable, like, you know, being a rock star when you're only 27-year old, everybody loving you, loving every song that you play out. That's just incredible. Of course, you probably say, okay, yeah, but he was going through awful economic problems. I mean, come on. If you were waiting for just money to come for you, it will eventually come because you had those royalties about all those albums, and we know that Nirvana make quite a lot of money. So that was not really the case. Any other person would have loved changing places with Kurt Cobain, and that is totally unfair for me to say because obviously for the family of Kurt Cobain because a little insulting. I'm really sorry. I don't want you to consider it that way if you get to hear these words. I'm using this as an example just to refer to any other important um, recognized person in any other position that somehow find themselves losing their lives, and they all have the same situation to actually face, like a moment in their lives in which they started thinking that whatever they were doing, even though they could have been seen by the others, like they reach a peak, a desirable peak, they still did not find any last satisfaction on it. And possibly that was the reason why they decided to simply just terminate themselves. Those that decided to terminate themselves because no other explanation. And that was the case of Cobain. You got the others that they terminate themselves in a different form, like ruining themselves, ruining their peace, their lives, um, being the perfect on the pitch and then a disaster with their social or family lives. We all know about situations like this. Such was the case of Dani Alves, someone that we all admired as a football player, but then going through such awful situations that he's going through right now with the allegations of his possible abuse he committed to this lady. Awful, awful situation that is happening. We are not saying he was guilty or he was not guilty. We're just saying that it's awful that a person finds themselves in a situation like this. And it doesn't really matter if they picked in the sport. Being a sport, one of those things that will supposedly make you have a good life. That was the idea of why we invented sports, as the concept, sports. Then there is the thing about dieting. There is the thing about sports. There is the thing about having a peace of mind. Then, as a result, we have the issue of sleeping. Who can actually sleep 100% well? Those people that apparently don't worry much. So, yeah, there's a group of people that have that capacity. But the majority of adults that I know in my life don't sleep the full 8 hours, not completely. I haven't slept the full 8 hours for quite a while now, and I'm only 43 years old. According to doctors, the only chance that you get to have a really really decent aged, uh, let's say, mental status is by making sure that you respected your sleeping time throughout those years in which you aged. And I know that I haven't. I know I really haven't respected my sleeping time as much as I should. And I know that many people have the same problem. So what's going on? Okay, we know all this. We are failing. Is it that Is it similar to the thing that I normally tell my students whenever they're doing something wrong? Like, you're deciding wrong on your own. Is that because you want to harm yourself? So, are we doing that? Are we harming ourselves? Is that the purpose of this life? You know, we're doing everything in order to have the worst future possible. What's going on, people? Of course, it's not true. Nobody does harm to themselves because they want to. Majority of the cases is just simply a blunder of many things in general. And blunders come because of lack of comprehension, of understanding. So this proves a little bit of my long introduction. Why is it that people say that they know so much about stuff, but in reality they don't? I mean, not in depth. They have a lot of information. One thing is having information, and the other thing is doing something with that information. That's the problem that we have today. So, going back to grinding life, let's go to the things that we know. Okay, let's go to from the most difficult part. Peace of mind. How do you have a peace of mind? Well, a peace of mind is taken on the idea of stability, right? And how do you get stability? Well, you got, of course, economic situation, and you have, of course, the home situation. The economic situation will affect the home situation. They're not exactly the same, but if you basically only simply just work a lot on one to improve it and neglect the other, your life is going to be miserable. It's like that. You have to work on both. Love without the money today is quite difficult to really be sustained. And what I mean by the money, I'm not speaking about cash. I'm speaking about the economic support that is necessary to live today's life. And it's true. Today's life is expensive. Can't deny that. People that don't like to work, as some people I heard in online profess or confess to say that they don't like to work and they want to do everything they can do in order to avoid working. Brave people, but man, if you don't work, if there is no production from you, you cannot really justify consumption. And as long as you're alive, you will consume. So this cycle is a cycle that needs the two sides. The sides of the input has to go has to connect or relate to the size of the output. So if you don't work, if you don't produce, it's gonna be bad. Simply, it's gonna be bad. Now, there's some people that have been raised being in a position in which other people work for them. However, they, I mean, I don't want to say that it's because of karma, because I don't want to be sounding as an holistic person just from the get go. Though I do believe in that this is a best way to describe it. Karma is actually the best way to describe what happens to people like this. But in general, when people don't do hours in an office or in anything that is considered, work, they do hours in other places, and those hours sometimes can actually be the reason why sometimes they don't make the best for themselves. Now, of course, there is a very small group of people that have been granted with, the grace of not having to worry for work at all. That's true, but they have their problems. You don't have to worry for those people. You have to worry for yourself. So going back to what we were saying, when we're speaking about the peace of mind, your peace of mind needs to be achieved by that balance that you have about your output and your input, the things that you do in order to make your life better. And again, it has to focus on what you do to produce funds, and what you do with your loved ones. Because every person comes back home after work, a full day of work. And where are you gonna go? You're gonna go home, and home implies all those people that live with you, that share a similar space. Even if you live alone, you got neighbors, right? So that's somehow home too. The fact that you share the similar air with other peoples. And the reason why I'm being emphatic with that is because a lot of people actually try to pretend that they don't, they're totally disconnected from everyone else. And it's not true. As long as you are walking around people, your weight is absorbed by the land in the same manner that the other does. And it has a little impact. It has a little impact on the elevator you use, on the roads that you walk on even the pavement, cars, buses, etc., etc., etc. You share a lot of the different things that happen around you. And that's the reason why your fate sometimes is connected to other people. Even if you try to avoid it, sometimes you can't avoid it. You know, multiple accident. What can you do? Natural disaster. What can you do? You are with the others. So, what can you do? The things that you can do are as simple as, you know, thinking that you can try to make the situation at home as better as you can try, right? You need to dedicate stuff to for you for like time, like obviously funds, money, love in reality to the things that happen at home. You need to in order for you to have a home that you want. Although otherwise you're simply just giving that, let's say, the situation of your home, you're giving the power of controlling that to others. If you don't do your best, you're making others take decisions upon the time that you spend at home. And if they choose against you, they choose against your will, or at least against your comfort, it's on you in reality because you never really wanted to take over a situation that is part of your life. So, yeah, peace of mind necessary. Find your peace of mind. And again, peace of mind is connected to those two things. Then we got dieting, eating what you need to eat. I love eating stuff that makes apparently my blood high in glucose. And if I don't pay attention to that, at least if I don't, control myself, who knows what the doctor might tell me. Um, why is that? Well, in particular, I think that it had been connected to how I grew up and the ways in which flavors and um, forms, ways of eating, even table manners, got with me in different type of attitudes that I grew up with, and possibly that's the reason why I believe I have a high disposition to, for example, eating, um, love eating gluten. So whatever has gluten on it, I love it. And it doesn't really matter what type of rigor I put on my diet because I do diet. I actually constantly have um, the practice of alternative fasting as one of the things that I use to keep my weight in check, as well as the type of ingredients that I eat, as you know most of our foods at home are cooked by my wife and myself. So considering all the way from ingredients to meals themselves, the way the preparation of them, etc., all of that, I can say without necessarily being in a position of bragging that getting sick by the food that I make, sorry, that I ingest in regular occasions is not really something that I see happening, as that is supposed to be taken care of. But then you see, I got that issue with gluten. And the issue with gluten is that it might actually put me in a situation in which I might affect my blood levels, my glucose blood levels. And that is supposed to be not that heavy, but still something to consider. But then again, I start thinking about people that love, like having the best companionship for their meals as drinking cola. And I don't mean, the personal cola. I'm speaking about some people actually consume a liter, half a liter of cola. I mean cola. I mean to say sodas. Cola. Gas. Sodas. Flavored sodas. Coca Cola, Pepsi Cola, whatever, whatever, whatever. So they use that while eating, and possibly more than 3 times a day. These people do that mm, most of their lives, at least the lives that I've seen. Mr. Jamie, hello, welcome. If I see that they do that, isn't that true that it is likely that they will end up having huge um, glucose problems? But apparently, they don't seem to consider that. Hello, Mr. Manuel. They don't seem to consider that when they consume the cola throughout their lives because they keep on consuming colas. Otherwise, that market was down. That was supposed to be down. That market is going working awesomely well. It doesn't really matter how badly Cristiano Ronaldo makes the marketing towards that particular market. Yes, I need a beer. Thank you, sir. Um, we know that people still will consume colas, still will consume, I don't know, cigarettes, will consume lots of sugar, and doesn't really matter how much we or any other person campaigns for the idea of keeping yourself away from stuff that is bad for you. And you see, I mentioned the idea of the market. Like, if everybody knows that, I don't know, let's say Coca Cola, whatever they make is terrible for you, how come Coca Cola is so big, still so influential? And you have advertising with the face of big figures, sometimes even athletes, on behalf of Coca Cola. Same situation with Pepsi. Same situation with, I don't know, let's say other different brands that promote, on the one hand, the quality of a product, on the other hand, represent something terrible, like the Monsanto scandalous behavior towards water, or many different clothing brands and their issues with sweat shops. Technology, same situation. The idea of the blood diamonds, that a situation that it has repercussions of how we consume certain type of gadgets that the technology depends on ingredients that come from countries that are awfully enslaved and abused by you know just by the fact that they have this raw material. It's a situation that we still live, and it's terrible, but it happens. There is a market for that. There is a market for bad drinks. There's a market for uh, terrible food. There is a market for things that rob you of your peace of mind. What's going on? How come we simply just don't, try to ask our governors, rid us, please, rid us of all these awful, evil things. Eliminate the casinos, eliminate fast food, eliminate entertaining, convert us in North Korea, right? It sounds a little bit like that. You can't do that, right? You can't force people to apparently do well, like choosing for them. Can't do that because who are you to do that? Now you can campaign and keep on saying to people, "Hey, please, people, try to keep a good diet, sleep well." You can say that. Some people will actually follow your lead, other people won't. Now, I must say, if you really want to have some of those things that we said before, you need to try at least to combine them into small ones, because otherwise it will be difficult for you to really attend each one of them. And what I mean by this is, let's go with the peace of mind thing. You want to have peace of mind. Well, you need to have the capacity of working in a place that will allow you to dedicate time to have peace of mind. So, of course, that necessarily means a good job, at least a job that is decent enough to give you that time. That means you have to dedicate yourself to that particular issue. So, covering the idea of a job that gives you that, that access of, be it time or even funds, to have the peace of mind, you go to the other thing. Later, Mr. Manuelation. Let's later. We got Mr. Raul. Hello, Raul. Thank you for coming. So, continuing what I was saying, we got access to our the ways that we work with the job that I said before. You get your job, right? A good job, a decent job, okay? And that allows you to get the time that you require to, let's say, work out, for example. So you go to the next part, the workout. Or, and, not just or, and dedicated time to your family and friends, for example. That also is important. So you got one fixed that points out at two more. And the two more, you got the situation for your house and home, and the situation for yourself, what you owe to yourself. And what you owe to yourself, then you have the idea of, for example, dieting. Yeah, you need to dedicate yourself to diets, dieting properly, like eating proper food. But to eat proper food, now I that tried to eat proper food, I realized that it's not very cheap. You gotta have to dedicate, economically speaking, to stuff that is better than the regular stuff. The other day, they asked me the difference between some of my students asked me the difference between ham and mortadella. I don't know the term for that. Do you know what the term for mortadella is? Francia, can you find me, please? I'm gonna try see if I have. I love you too. I'm gonna try if I see um, our producer to help us with the some terms that sometimes I forget. But well, the difference between one and the other is that it's the same mortadella. Mortadella. Wow, imagine that. Okay, so mortadella with double L and ham. Big difference is that comes from Bologna. The composition of the particular type of sausage, because it's a sausage, is not good. Is not good because it doesn't really get to the simple part that is the leg. Ham is supposed to be the leg. Sometimes you have the ham from the back, but then you have this thing, the mortadella, that is a combination of all the leftovers that could be, I don't know, um, guts, flesh, other type of cuts, etc., etc., etc. So all that stuff combined in one thing, and then you have your mortadella. It's economically effective, but not necessarily the best thing. Okay, not necessarily the best thing. So if you eat mortadella instead of ham, well, of course, you're not really getting the best ingredient for yourself. But you probably say, hold on, but I can only afford mortadella. Well, you could investigate a little bit better, but you could afford with the budget that you handle, because everybody basically have different budgets, and not every person have the best one, but you can do the best with what you have. Your will, your dedication, your your interest will work on that. Now you probably say, but that's not easy to achieve. It's obviously true. It's not easy to achieve, and especially it's not true if you live with other people. And that's when you connect that with the other people too, and you start fixing that situation at home, having a better home situation. makes your life better, gives you that peace of mind that you require. Francia, Manuel senses love. So, yes, when you have the idea of living your life with others, speaking about food, it's necessary that you somehow make that others be part of your adventure of eating well. You work on many different ways, saving yourself and saving the life of others if you eat well. Because obviously, one of the results that everybody knows that happens when you eat well is you avoid unnecessary diseases. You know, I got Manuel here. He could actually tell you guys that is sometimes a certain type of things can be avoided, like having to be operated from your spleen, having to be operated from your your base, or your for some people your kidneys, your liver. I mean, because you abuse of a particular meal, it's just to say a little bit irresponsible to your own body. Now, obviously, you probably argue, hey, but I did not know that eating this could lead me to that. For many people, that thing is true. But once you learn that you have certain type of dispositions, shouldn't you, act on a aiming at the idea that you will have to live or adapt to this condition for the rest of your life. Like, for example, if cinnamon makes you have stomach aches, should you abuse of cinnamon? Maybe one day, maybe in a year, in anything. Can you abuse of those things? Not really, not good. Then we have the other thing, sports. To close, this is the part that is the difficult for the hardest one for adults my age and older than me, because the discipline of getting into a sport is heavy. It's a heavy duty, and I can only say that once you get it, you will enjoy it. But you definitely need to make yourself, you know, get it. Legalizing anabolic steroids. Look, as long as they're really, really beneficial and they don't have side effects, why not? I mean, not for competition, but why not for general people? Like there was the case of this fighter, Anderson Silva, who had a terrible accident in a fight and he almost lost a leg. His leg, or the side of his tibia, got totally shattered and it looked like a rubber thing once it broke in the middle of a fight. That was actually how the fight ended. Possibly his career later on, because he didn't really get to be the same as a MMA fighter afterwards. In order for him to heal, he had to consume the steroids, which once he came out in his blood, put him in a little bit trouble with the association that is in charge of testing athletes and finding illegal substances similar to, for example, anabolic steroids. But you see, anabolic steroids are not necessarily bad. Some of them are used to heal people like that. Continuing on idea of sports, keeping your life, regular physical activity in order to keep your life better. I guess that you owe it to yourself. You owe to yourself doing something that will make your heart better for later on. If you don't do it, is really, I mean, whatever happens to you because you didn't do it is your responsibility. Now, the only advice I can say that similar to what I say to my students, generally the ones that they want to learn English, like I'd say, okay, you want to learn English, expose yourself to stuff, that is in English, anything to read or anything to watch or listen to in English. In that way, you will learn. But of course, it has to be stuff that you want to listen to or watch or read about. Because if not, eh, it's difficult. It's difficult for you to really learn anything when you're bored all the way out of going or learning that thing. So when it comes to sports, it's the same. There must be a physical activity that you can do. Why is that? Because bodies are different, but sports are different too. As long as you're capable of having that sport that you find that you can do in your free time, that time that you dedicate to, build up your body, it's good. You don't need to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was 20. That's stupid to consider to have goals like those. You simply need to have your heart pumping. That's the only thing that doctors require for you to do. So, a lot of bad expectations make or spoil the whole situation of, trying to have a good life. And that's pretty much the reason why I guess it's difficult to maintain a physical activity once you're grown up. But we got to work on that. Yeah, it's true, my friend. It is totally true. Well, people, I think I've reached the maximum of today. Wow, today was long. I thought it was gonna make only 30 minutes. If you guys have any question you would like me to answer before we call the day of tonight. In the meantime, remember that we got the club and the Speak Up Club that is growing exponentially. Thanks to you guys. We're really happy. We're opening new hours for those people that want to practice that level of English, that let's say that they're a bit rusty or simply they just want to speak about topics similar to the ones that we're speaking about tonight. If you're interested, you're invited. Come on, at the Speak Up Club. Contact us, send us here a message here, YouTube or in here in Instagram, and we check you out. Those of you that want to keep on working on that. And for the regular audience, the people that are here tonight, the faithful ones, thank you, Raul, thank you, Mr. Manuel, and thank you, Mr. Shamey. So for you guys, remember that we always have the Fridays sessions. This session that is actually a service that we have, in which we think about a problem or issue or thing that you might consider as interesting, and we ponder about it in different forms, different ways, to make you or give you examples of how you can use the similar techniques such as the ones that we use here to explore making your own level of English better. We are studying here, and we're simply just showing you how we're studying, so you guys can study on your own. And that's the service that we're providing here at the A-létheia Lives. Remember, next week is the Q&A. So, people, for the Q&A, get ready next week. All right? Questions then? No, no, no. Well, anyway, I'm really happy of having had you guys, the ones that were here. And for all the people that will be watching this afterwards, remember what we said. Um, you gotta fix your problems. You gotta be responsible with yourself if you want to have a good life, and dedicate yourself to fix that issue. Bye bye, people. And we are done in Instagram. Bye bye, people from Instagram. Here we go. And we are done with the people